is Road Race Guy Reviews Harleys. This is the Harley-Davidson Fat Bob 114 2019 model. We're going to take this thing out, put it through its paces on some of Southern California's greatest roads, and see how it stacks up with Road Race Guy on board. So stay tuned, folks. This is going to be a lot of fun. All right, Fat Bob 114, guys. We did a little ride on this thing. We're going to talk about it for a minute. We got the big engine with Harley. This is the new Milwaukee 8. You don't have to have aftermarket exhaust to get good power out of this thing. That's one of the big advantages of it. Lots of torque low down like we talked about in the ride. Dual discs up front with the inverted forks. A lot of people don't understand the advantage of this, but it's a cartridge damping system, which means it's a much better ride and also much improved rigidity with the upside down race style forks. Again, dual discs up front give you great braking power. We got the awesome LED headlight. This is 21st century style. It's a really cool headlight. Not only is it super functional in the day and night, but it really lets everybody around you know that you're coming. Very visible to other traffic. Fat Bob's got kind of a drag style handlebar. It's a flat bar, really good position. Great seat on this motorcycle. You can ride it all day long. And then the unique feature here with the Fat Bob has got to be the big tires. At first I thought this was going to be a huge drawback to this bike, but in riding the thing, actually, they really do work pretty good. You can put it where you want it to. I think they take a little bit of accuracy away from the handling, but not enough to really make a big difference. Overall, really good bike. Adjustable preload in the rear. All you gotta do is spin that little thing with your hand, and you can dial it in if you're a little bit bigger of a guy or you're carrying a passenger. It's a really great option to just be able to click that preload up right there. Outside of that, beautiful motorcycle, as you can see, and really, really fun to ride. Road Race Guy Reviews Harleys, thank you. All right, Fat Bob 114. Good power delivery, low end torque. We got idiots pulling out left and right. Pretty good city bike, the Fat Bob. It gets around pretty easy and get through traffic without too much fuss. Bars are kind of a little bit wider than most, but not too wide to impede lane splitting. Still haven't come to terms with the Harley-Davidson blinker arrangement. One of my least favorite things about a Harley-Davidson is having those blinkers on both sides like that. Another thing I'm not crazy about with the Fat Bob, it's not a big distraction, but if you'll notice, the mirrors are very close to my hands. I don't necessarily like that dynamic all that much. It does kind of bind up my left clutch hand there when I'm doing things from time to time. So I think Harley would have been a little bit better served to make those mirrors about a ½ inch higher. I think it would have been a much more functional solution. I wish the shape was about the opposite of what it is, where you got the wider part on the outside and the skinnier part on the inside. But hey man, it's a mirror. It's not that big of a deal. It gets the job done. It looks pretty cool. I do have to move a little elbow to see completely behind me, but that is not out of the ordinary in any way. So let's talk a little bit about the 114 here and the old Fat Bob. Good solid power plant. Torquier than the 107 that is available for sure. A little bit more responsive, I think. The good thing about these new Harley engines is we really don't have to put a open exhaust and an air filter and do a lot of tuning to get good power out of these. They kind of make really good power in their stock form, which for us here in California and a lot of other parts of the world, that's a really important thing since we can't run real exhausts. So we're getting good performance out of this 114 in its stock arrangement. Fat Bob scoots through traffic really well. Got all that instant torque right off the bottom. Doesn't really matter what rev you're at, it's always got that acceleration right there. And here in Venice, you got a lot of homeless folks running around out in the road like that. You got to watch for tour buses. Here we go. That's dangerous. Ferraris. Front brakes on the Fat Bob, pretty dang good, bringing this big sucker to a stop. Also, 114 on the Fat Bob is a really smooth upshifting, downshifting engine. They've got the gearing pretty right on this thing. You can really blip the throttle and get a nice smooth downshift, which is something that some of these Harleys I've ridden in the past weren't as smooth with, but this Fat Bob does a really good job with that. Fat Bob's easy to handle at low speed through these little cars like this. I'm going about 2-3 miles an hour, and it is pretty well balanced. Easy to lane split, like I was saying earlier. Now we get up to two people like this trying to pinch us off. There's really not much you can do except just kind of wait. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate that. Heat coming off the Fat Bob is relatively significant at some points in the summertime around here, but if the weather's cool, to be honest with you, that little heat you feel coming off the exhaust on the right leg is not an unwelcome thing. It's certainly not excessive in any way, but it is there. Even with my flashy red leathers on, I can still feel it just a little bit right now. But again, if it's cool out, that's kind of a good thing. Seat on the Fat Bob, really, really good. The only thing I would complain about with the seat on this motorcycle is it kind of holds you in a position. Me being a road race guy, I do like to move around a good bit on the motorcycle. And this seat does kind of hold you in the spot it wants you to be in. But it luckily is or intentionally rather, it's the right spot to be in for this bike to perform pretty dang well. Again, like I said, being a road race guy, I kind of crawl all over a motorcycle. That's how I like to ride them, and this one does hold me in it, but I can really use a lot of upper body English to swing this motorcycle around a curve. I don't necessarily have to put a butt cheek off of the seat like you would on a normal sport bike or a road race bike. On these Harleys, especially these new Softails, they're engineered so well that you really just need to lean that upper body in, and it's going to do everything that you want it to do. Scooting through traffic. Fat Bob's nice and smooth. I'm in fourth gear right now, running about 55 miles an hour. Low RPMs, it's chugging along just fine. Nice easy clutch pull on this Fat Bob. Smooth, buttery shifting. I know this is a new demo model. I think I've only got 150 something miles on this bike. I think I've put most of them on it. Fit and finish is wonderful on these. The quality feeling that this motorcycle gives you when you ride it, it's kind of like a muscle car from the 60s as far as how it's built. Like, you know that if it tears up, you can fix this thing. You don't necessarily have to throw it away. So I'm rolling up the PCH here about 55 miles an hour. No windscreen on the Fat Bob. Doesn't bother me at all. No buffeting really coming off this thing. My helmet is really stable. My chest is taking some wind. But again, it's kind of summer weather today, so I'm feeling just fine with that. No real need for wind protection on this motorcycle. It would definitely ruin the looks, but I just don't think you need it. It's got a cafe racer element to it. It's got a power cruiser element to it, but it's something different than both of those things. It does handle well, and it's just a different type of motorcycle than you're used to seeing out there. The big balloony tires, I'm not crazy about those. I mean, they look cool. I think it does negatively affect the handling to a small degree. It does resist laying in a corner sometimes. Not like it's fighting or anything, but it tends to want to stand up a little bit. Once you get it leaned in, we'll explore that dynamic a little bit more as we get off of these busy roads and get into some curves up here. These guys can see me coming really well because I've got this big, very distinctive LED headlight on this Fat Bob. It's a really big part of the styling of this bike, and it's a really cool thing. It has a headlight on it that looks a lot different than most any other motorcycle that you've ever seen, and it's really effective. I have ridden this after dark, and it works quite well. LEDs not only help you see the world better, but they help the world see you much better. And on a motorcycle in LA, there are a few things that are more important than being seen by all of these folks that are zooming around. All right, road kids. This is one of my favorite roads in the world to ride a motorcycle on. It is silky smooth since it was repaved a few months ago. Got some traction to it now finally. Great on a sport bike. And this is Road Race Guy Reviews Harleys. So we're going to see how the old Harley-Davidson does. Lean it into this corner. Nice and smooth. New tires feel great on this sucker. Like I was saying earlier, a little body English. Don't necessarily have to get the butt all the way off the seat. Get a little upper body into it. A little downshift. Watch out for that gravel. A little peg scrapey. Right on up the road. Oh yeah. Beautiful up here. Fat Bob feels great. I'm cruising in third gear, about 40 miles an hour. We're going to go down to second. Engine braking takes care of everything I need it to. Pulls out like a damn beast. Left, right, left, right. Feels really good. It's easy to hold a line on this motorcycle with these new tires on it. It really sets in the curve nice. And it's relatively confidence-inspiring. You can put it right in there and drag that peg, no problem. Now that is one thing we could improve on with the Fat Bob as far as performance goes, is some mid-controls would go a long way. But man, the handling on this really nice. Forks feel good, they're soaking up everything, they're giving me feedback of the road like I want. I can feel most of the bumps right through the bars and differentiate the road feel from the bike feel pretty easily on this motorcycle. I really do like this show of front end. Pulls strong out of these corners. 114, not a lot of shifting required. You can kind of be lazy. I'm a bit of a super sport racer myself, so I do like to be all over the gearbox. And for a Harley, this thing has a really, really good gearbox. Some of the older ones, very clunky. This one is nice and smooth. Not quite Japanese gearbox-ish, but it's got a really solid feel and a nice smooth shift to it. There's a Lamborghini. Laying it into these corners, it's just super smooth. If you get your body position right, lean into them, Fat Bob does a really good job. I'm not even considering the rear right now. It's just doing everything I want it to do the way I want it to do it. So I don't really have to worry about that shock. I've got it on a lighter setup and it's doing just fine. If you want to blip the throttle, downshift into these turns, it responds well. Clutchless upshifts, nice and smooth. Maybe as smooth as a Japanese bike on those. Effortless through these little switchbacks. Not necessarily turning in like a R6 or something, but you really don't have to think too much about getting this Fat Bob in a corner. It responds very nicely to gentle inputs, and it handles really neutrally. This is a nice big sweeping turn to the right. Test the Fat Bob suspension in a couple ways, because this one has a lot of bumps in it. Lean it on in here. Where do we get? Nice, even, neutral feeling. Notice I'm pulling up on this guy on his little BMW real easy. Absorbing the bumps. A little choppy through here. We could have a little bit more compliance with the rear shock over those bumps, but it's doing a pretty good job. The wheel's not leaving the ground. It's not causing any disturbance, and I am riding this bike much harder right now than it was ever designed to be ridden on a road like this. Oh, those front binders are really stopping me good. Really positive feel out of the front brakes right there. I've been on this bike for about an hour at this point. Nice and comfortable. Seat is really good. Legs, knees feel good. I wish the seat was a little bit higher, pegs were a little bit higher, but if that was the case, I would be much more uncomfortable right now. The neutral handling of this motorcycle is a thing that it just can't be overstated. It's a really easy motorcycle to ride. Oh, rolling down Mulholland Highway. Beautiful day. This is one of my favorite big sweeping turns right here. You can hit this sucker at about 120 on a sport bike. I'm rolling through here at about 60 on this Harley. Ah, that 114 feels so good coming out of there. Nice and smooth power delivery on this thing. It really is quite impressive. Swinging her on in here. You take a nice wide line with this thing. You can line up an apex good and just roll on that throttle anywhere. And it's got just so much torque. So much power coming out of these turns. It is no 600cc sport bike. Coming out of that sucker. Oh, full throttle. Let's hit the Mulholland jump right up here. See how many wheels we can get off the ground. Straighten up. Oh, both wheels. That was fun. Now, I made a mistake coming in that corner back there, but it's easily corrected on this bike, even though it's so big. As far as controls on this thing goes, really good clutch on this bike. This is a brand new motorcycle, so it just has no wear on it, but really good positive feel out of the clutch, out of the gear shifter. Transmission, like I've said many times already, really, really smooth on this. Really good job Harley did on the transmission on this 114, at least on this one. Brakes are great, foot controls. Rear brake doesn't have a lot of bite, but it gets the job done, and it's got some feel to it, just not a lot of bite. Activating these guys way out there, you can see my feet are out in front of me. I'm using road race boots, but it's all working really seamlessly. I'm super accustomed to GP shift pattern, but you have to shift this motorcycle so little that it gives you time to think about it beforehand. So it's not really causing any problems for me today. The only thing that's causing problems right now are these people in this car that are just going about 2 miles an hour. I've never run my mouth this much and ridden a motorcycle. It's a new experience for me, orating a ride, but I'm having a lot of fun doing it, and I hope we get to keep doing it because I think there's something to it. Sure, you guys have noticed I'm riding this thing one-handed most of the time. It's just really easy to get this bike down the road. I'm barely cracking the throttle. You're able to stay nice and relaxed on the Fat Bob. You don't really have to be all over it. There's no weight on any part of my body except for my butt, but I'm still kind of straight up and down. I'm not leaned back like I'm on a couch, like some of your more aggressively cruiser-ish motorcycles. I know that's probably not a word, but you get the idea. Now, they've engineered these Harleys, these engines, the new ones, to have a little bit of vibration at idle, and it smooths out just when you come off of idle. And, man, you can really feel it right here. You let it idle down to about 9,000 RPMs. You get a little shake through the whole bike. Nothing crazy, but just a little bit. And then you give it a little gas, and, man, she smooths right out like a sewing machine. Same thing's happening when you're rolling it down the road. I'll tell you, one thing I absolutely dislike on this Harley-Davidson and most everyone I've ever ridden that I think is a huge safety concern is the horn button is impossible to find on these things. You really have to look for it. Maybe I'll get used to it over time, but I find it excessively hard to find when I need it. And here in LA, the horn is just uber critical. I'm going to sign off. This has been John Soseby Does Road Racer Reviews Harley-Davidson's Fat Bob edition. Hope you guys enjoyed our video today. Headed back to the store, Bartell's Harley-Davidson, world famous Bartell's Harley-Davidson. Come see us, 4141 Lincoln Boulevard, Marina Del Rey. I will be there. I will give you my honest opinion about Harley-Davidsons or any other motorcycles. I own all kinds of manufacturers' bikes. I just like to ride. So if you want to come talk to me, come on by. Again, John Soseby. Here's Road Racer Reviews Harleys. Peace.